Hi, everyone. It's Lynn from Devine Central, and I'm here with Anne-Marie McNamara from Ireland. She is one of my co-hosts on our monthly Tarot Readers podcasts that you can see on this channel. So Anne-Marie and I have been talking about the hidden features, or actually we started talking about Pamela Coleman Smith and her artistry, and that culminated into a discussion about some of the more interesting hidden symbols in the Rider-Waite-Smith decks. And last week we did a piece on the majors and some of the ones we found the most interesting on the majors, major arcana. Today we're doing part 2, which is on the minors. And so we've got quite a few to go through. So stick with us because we're going to move pretty fast when we get going here. But I want you to think about something as we're going over this. When you see symbols on the cards, let's say somebody asks you a question and you pull a card, what is the very first thing that you notice on that card? Because if you believe, as I do, that the cards are spirit driven, that is the number one way that spirit gets messages through to you. If you have 7 or 8 symbols on a tarot card and they all mean something different to you, spirit knows that, and it will draw your attention to something in a card to say, hey, here's the message that you need to pass on. So it's just something to think about while we're going through these, because the more hidden features you can find to grab your attention that you can assign something to, the better, right? Okay, Anne-Marie, hi, how you doing?
Very well, Lynn. Nice to be with you today.
Oh, it's always nice to be with you too. So where are we starting? I think we were going to talk about courts first, right?
We were
Okay.
indeed. Okay, so if we look at the wands, Lynn, the one that draws my attention first of all is the Queen of Wands, because she's sitting there on her throne and she's sitting there upright and she's just sitting there in her own power. She's the only one of the courts, I think, that has this decorated throne behind her with all the Leo signs. She's got her black cat at her feet and she's sitting there just totally in control. She's happy in her queenship.
Right. And so what makes her so different?
What makes her so different? I don't know.
She doesn't have any salamanders.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Yes, she doesn't have salamanders because the kings and the knights and the pages, they've all got salamanders on their tunic. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you there for a moment.
Nope, sorry. But she doesn't have any. So what does that signify to you?
That she's happy. She has her own independent power. She's an independent woman. She's working under her own speed, and the others are working. The pages and the knights are working to become the king. They're doing their apprenticeship.
Yep.
The page is starting off. The knight is coming behind him, more masterful and more full of action. But both the page and the knight have the salamanders on their tunics, but the salamanders are not complete. They're not completing the circle. Whereas if you look at the king, and if you look at the king's cloak, you'll see he also has salamanders, but the salamanders are totally, the circle is closed, their tail is in their mouth, which tells us that the king has completed his apprenticeship. He is now in full control. He knows where he is and what he's at. And that's what makes him the king. Whereas the queen doesn't need this. She's in her own, working in her own independent power.
That's true. You know, and the cats, I think the cats are a great symbol of that, don't you? I mean, they're so fiercely independent, you know, as a creature. So I was thinking, okay, how could you use the fact that she doesn't have salamanders? How could you use that as you know, something practical for a reading? And I came up with this. So if I were to ask you, how do you see our relationship panning out over the next 6 months? And let's say that we pull a Knight of Wands, a Queen of Wands, and an 8 of Pentacles. We'll throw something different in there. So obviously the salamanders stand for fire, right? Or the wands, I should say, in general. And of course, the Knight of Wands would be fire, as well as the Queen. And I would probably say to you, well, there's enough passion and desire to work at it, provided she can convince you to do things her way. because that's how she rolls. That's how I see the Queen of Wands. She's going in her own direction. And that's where she parts with the guys in her group. So I really like her. I think she's
with you.
Yeah, she's
And we've been told somebody somewhere wrote about the Queen of Wands, that she's the sexiest queen in the bunch.
Yeah, she actually is, or at least she's the most flirtatious, I should say. One.
But they were talking about her individual stance and how she's sitting there, and she just knows who she is and what she wants. Right. So I agree with your reading on that. Yes.
So the king has the fully closed salamander, the tail and the mouth. And let's say you're asking about a promotion. Am I going to get the promotion? If you notice the salamander first when you look at the card, you might say, you've reached a point of readiness, but do you have the confidence to trust you deserve it? Because this king has a lot of confidence. And that might be the question that you ask. Perhaps there's still some knowledge or skill that you need to acquire before the promotion becomes yours. So that might be something that you would have them start talking about or thinking about. Now, as far as the younger guys that don't have the closed salamander, you could ask the same question and come back with, open salamanders don't necessarily mean that you won't get promoted. They suggest that there might be some additional learning or experience that would strengthen your candidacy, to get that promotion. So, giving somebody something that they can walk away with, something that they can work with,
exactly.
just in case.
And what you're saying makes great sense too, because when you think of it, the king is about knowledge. So ask yourself, do you have enough knowledge, or is there any other area? Is there any other course perhaps that would make you stand out as the ideal candidate? Is there any other little bit of knowledge that would make you appear to be the one they're looking for?
Exactly.
And if you're talking about the knight, again, the knights are about action. So you might ask yourself, you might say, well, I'm not totally ready yet. So what action do I need to take to make myself better equipped for this position? What do I need to meet somebody? Do I need to join up a course? What do I need to present? What action do I need to take that will make this work for me? And then, of course, if you're looking at the page, he's only starting off on his journey. So he might look and see, what do I need to learn? How do I start here? How do I need to get the very basics right? That will show that I have the basics of this, and I can convince the boss that I'm in there ready to learn, but I have a basic knowledge of the company and what's going on.
And it could be anything. It could be anything that you need to get started. And you could just say, if they get the page, I'm just not ready, or you're just not ready. It could be something that's simple. I love simple stuff. So,
yes, yeah.
So the next thing, let me see, I'm looking at our list, would be, I think the one thing that we talked about was the Queen of Pentacles. And
Queen of Pentacles. And an interesting thing there, Lynn, she has a camouflaged rabbit at her feet, representing fertility, abundance, and comfort. Now, some of the decks are different, because I looked at my Radiant deck and there's nothing camouflaged. This
right
rabbit sitting out in front waving his paw at you.
Right.
And
I'm looking, if you look at the one on the screen, right above the end of Pentacles is where this one's kind of camouflaged.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's purely camouflaged. This is the giant rider Waite I'm looking at now. Yeah. And that is absolutely camouflaged. I had to look to see where was it, and I said, oh, that's where that is. But looking at, so not all of the decks, they might have the same symbols, but they mightn't be exactly the same. The rabbit may or may not be camouflaged, but it's still about fertility and abundance and comfort. And that's what the Queen likes. The Queen of Pentacles, she appreciates being well looked after. She appreciates having her creature comforts. She knows that she has earned this, and this is where she wants to be.
And it's her forte. This is
yes.
This is what she's best at. I came up with this as an example. My mother was asked to volunteer at school, but I worry that she has so many other things on her plate. Is this a good idea? And the rabbit, which also symbolizes, the comfort and the sense of security, Perhaps volunteering at the school would bring her satisfaction and contribute to her feelings of well-being. So maybe, you know how some people, when they're, you know, assigned to something that they love, you know, what do they say? You know, you never work, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. You know, it could be one of those things like that. So it's something to think about. Now,
Plus the fact that her mother at this stage could be like the Queen of Pentacles. She's got every other thing she needs, all the creature comfort she needs. She has done what she wants to do. Now, this to her is her, as you say, her satisfaction, her little bit extra that she's giving herself because of the experience she has gained over the years in doing all that she has done.
So you have to ask yourself, what does that rabbit, especially if you're working with a deck where it's obscured, what does that rabbit mean to you? What could that rabbit mean to you, and in that position on this card, and how could you relate that? And then that's what you assign it. And you have one more, one more tool in your arsenal when this card comes up. So the next card is the King of Pentacles, and he's
a busy card, isn't it, Berlin?
It's a busy card.
It's such a busy card, yes.
It really is. And it's with all the Taurus and the fact that it's kind of a Capricorn energy in this card, but all the Taurus dominated things on it. But it's so funny because you only see one of his feet. And under that foot, he's got his foot on something. And I guess I never paid attention to it until I got out a what do you call it? Magnifying glass and started taking a look. But, it's interesting because some people think it's an armadillo and others think it's a tortoise. But, you went right to the source because it was Arthur Waite who, commissioned these cards, and he knew what he wanted on them, whether or not Pamela Coleman Smith took a little bit of a little bit of time and energy of her own doing. But the pictorial key of the tarot never addressed what he's got his foot on. The majority think it's a bull, which probably makes more sense because it's an earth card and an earth sign, being a Taurus. And it's a symbol of strength and determination, reflecting the king's mastery over the material world. And Llewellyn's complete book of Rider Waite-Smith Tarot confirms that, does it not?
It does indeed, yes.
So I think when you see that, it's, he kind of, his foot on the head of the Taurus or the head of the bull kind of reminds me of, having your finger on the pulse of whatever's going on in your life. I kind of see it like that. He's got control of it. You might say in a reading that he has control of the situation, whether it's through his work ethic or his ability to negotiate a situation or his control of finances, whatever it is, he's got it pinned down. He's got the situation pinned down. That's kind of how I see it. What about you?
And I would see it as well in that he has control of anything that threatens his what he's got. He has now achieved all he needs. He has fought for his wealth and his status and he has his foot on the head of this bull, the tower symbol. So he's got control. He's got this covered. He's not going to allow anything to upset his apple cart. This is how I would see that.
I agree. All right. So the next card we have is the Queen of Swords. And there's a whole lot of imagery on this too. We won't go into the whole thing here, but basically as a combo, there's two things that I think strike me as the most interesting that I did not know before we started, this venture, Anne-Marie. And one that I thought was really interesting is the single bird in the sky. And there's a couple of other cards that also have it. And to me, the books say that it represents freedom. And here you can see as a swords card, I'm thinking, freedom of expression, right? Because that's what this card is about. The card is about it's about, the suit is about communication. It's about what we think and then how we communicate what we think. And so I thought that that was really interesting. What's the other one, Anne Marie?
Hold on a minute. I've got lost in this pile of information. There is so much about the Queen of Swords. I absolutely love all the information that comes with her. But the second one you might be talking about are the tassels on. She has a tassel on each of her wrists. You can hardly see it on the right one, but you can see it on the left.
Okay.
And these are red tassels. And some people say that these are prayer beads. These are rosary beads. And this is what strengthens her. She gets her strength from the divine. That this is where she gains her strength. Other people will tell you that she was at one stage tied up, that she was bound, her hands were bound, and she didn't feel her freedom. But by using her rapier sharp wit, she was able to free her bounds, and gain her wisdom and be like a bird in the air flying above her. And she decided to hold on to these tassels to remind her that this is how it happened, that she was able to achieve this herself. So take your pick. It's a rosary beads, or it's the remains of tassels that bound her until she was able to free herself.
Yeah, that's interesting. I also think that she is a defender of people that have trouble defending themselves. I think that she's the kind of person that would stand up and for people. And I also see her extended hand as, if you consider the beads, the prayer beads, if you consider them as her protection, right? She's offering that protection out to others. So, offering to help them. And sometimes it's hard for us to accept help or accept, protection from other people. Either we don't feel we deserve it, or we whatever reason, we don't want to be beholden to people. But it's so interesting, because I think if you take what you've said and, combine that with, there's so many different things it could be. But I think that, I think it's really interesting that if you can hone in on that and come up with something that it would be really good, because this card's a tough card, Anne Marie. It's a hard card for people to put into practical, use. And, I think when I think of her, I think of stop right there. Do not tread any farther. Is kind of what I see with her. This is a boundary, and she's stopping people at that boundary. Anyway,
and also you could also say she doesn't suffer fools gladly. She is a woman alone as well. She's definitely, her head her head rules her heart. She's a woman standing on her own. The sword she has is absolutely upright. She's not going to budge an inch. What she says, when she wants the truth, she needs the truth and nothing apart from the truth.
Right.
And if you look at her where she's pointing, she's facing full forward. So whatever is causing her a problem, whatever she's worried about or annoyed about or upset about, because certainly she has a very grumpy face. So whatever is causing her a problem, it's nothing to do with the past. She's left the past behind her. It's completely to do with something that's out there, front and center, or straight in her future. Not even in the present, but something that she doesn't like that's coming up in the future. This is how I would see it.
I see it. Yeah.
They also said love and kindness still exist beneath the surface,
yeah.
and she may prove a powerful ally in adversity.
All right.
So you may get the Queen of Swords when you have this feeling that you need to protect somebody who is unhappy or in difficulty. But as you were saying earlier, this doesn't always work. You have to wait until they're asked. That particular time when you decide they need help may not be the time they're open to receiving help. But keep in there, keep an eye on what's happening, and get in there when they're ready for it.
Right. All right. Let's move on to the Two of Pentacles.
The Two of Pentacles, yes. What do you have to say about the Two of Pentacles, Lynn?
Well, the lemon skate, that's the first thing. And that is that's also in the Magician, the World, the Strength card. And it's obvious, so I don't want to spend any time on it. I just wanted to bring up the fact that it's about huge potential. And when we see this card, we don't always think about that. We think, I'll see it and think, oh my God, I'm going to be balancing this stuff forever. It's still about infinite, infinity, but it's like, my God, it's going to just be ongoing. But the thing I think that people see but don't really pay attention to are the ships in the background. And I think that even with the lemon skate, if if you think about it, whatever situation you're presented with in a reading, you think of it in the long term, because infinity is a long time, right? And so sometimes we see this as a 2 card and we think, oh, this is the very beginning of something, or it's a short term something, and it's really not. The infinity shows us that it's long term. But the rocky waves, what do they say? What are they signifying?
Well, so when I look at this card, when I look at the person in the card, they're not quite standing on solid ground. He hasn't got his 2 feet on the ground, which makes me wonder, has he got a good grasp on reality? When is he going to stop trying to balance things? What is he going to try to do? What action can he take that will mean this constant cycle that he's in of lack and want and spending more than he's got? And this might not be money. This might be his time. This might be he's addicted to watching movies for half the night, so he wakes up half asleep in the morning and can't get his work done. It might be that he goes to help a neighbor because the neighbor is very chatty, and that's where he spends his time. So it's about some asset, not necessarily money, could be money, something that he's wasting or not making the best use of. So when I look at this, I say, look, when are you going to put your feet on the ground? When are you going to get real? And what are you going to do to break out of this? 2s are about choices. What are you going to do to break out of this situation that's really keeping you in a loop? And you were asking about the water behind. The water is very choppy behind. Sometimes when a person like this person in the card has someone, if they're short of money, they begin to say, yeah, things are not so good now, but everything will be okay as soon as my ship comes in. You're waiting for something in the distance, something in the background. Maybe you're hoping to win the lotto. Maybe you're thinking the boss will really see me this time next year. I'm going to be on big money. So you're waiting for something else out there to change your situation. So when I see this, I say, look, get your other foot on the ground. Start seeing, what are you going to do to change your situation? If you're waiting for these ships to come in, they may or they may not, because they're on very choppy water.
Right.
So but I would be inclined to think anyway.
Well, when I see this card,
I want to shake him. When I see someone like this, I want to shake him and say, get real, get moving.
Yeah. When I see this card, I always think of balance, or I always think of trying to balance 2 things at the same time. And of course, that can get rocky. And so for me, when the ships in the background on the rolling sea just remind me that, if you're trying to multitask something, you might want to ask yourself if you can stomach the fluctuations that are going to be coming your way. And that could go with, I'm trying to think of something here. My roommate and her boyfriend are getting into an argument or have been fighting. Should I try to step in and be the voice of reason? It's like, and then you pull this card, right? It's like, well, you're balancing whether or not you should or should not participate. But if you look at the ships in the rolling background, you need to ask yourself, are you prepared for the backlash that could possibly come from something like that? So it's something that you can notice and try to assign. So the next card on our list is the 5 of Pentacles. So let me bring that up here. There you go. Do you see it?
I have yes, 5 of Pentacles up.
Now, the interesting thing on this card was some believe that there's a bell around the neck of the man with the crutches.
You can see a bell, Lynn. You can see
the bell. I can see it pretty clear on this card.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, in the olden times, people with health issues like, that had like leprosy were made to wear a bell to warn or to notify people to stay away.
Of course, so, yeah.
What do you think of when we see that bell on this guy? I mean, I can't imagine it being to warn people to stay away, although I guess we could find something to that degree. What did I?
Well, maybe this spell, it means he's looking for attention. He's trying to catch someone, that rather than be trying to warn people to stay away, maybe he's really feeling isolated, abandoned, away, really uncared for.
Right.
And
Or disconnected from people. Yeah.
he's looking for attention. So that, for example, they say this is one of the few cards in the deck that has to do, that you can actually say has to do with health. There aren't too many cards that, I suppose every card could be a health card, but this particular one, you can see that people are not well. So when I see that bell, I think maybe that person in the card feels a lack, feels a need for change, and is trying to get maybe to get the attention of a distant or uninterested parent. Maybe he's doing his best to get their attention because he wants things to change, and he wants things to be different, and he wants them to see them for who he is rather than who they want him to be. Could that be it?
So the bell, so the symbol of the bell could be for somebody, you or for somebody, a symbol of change or a symbol of attention. I see it as, he could be struggling financially or emotionally or socially and just feels unable to reach out for the help due to, feeling ashamed or feeling fear of rejection or something for how he got himself in this predicament. So, it's interesting. If it calls to you, then it means something, and it's worth, pursuing and trying to figure out what that could mean in various contexts. So
ask you, when you see something like that you see this bell, as we see the bell now, and we don't really know. You might see a bell and so start asking yourself the questions. What could it be? What is it saying to me? What would I use a bell for? If I saw somebody else, if somebody else had this, asking yourself the questions, and bit by bit, you will sort out what's important for you. I saw another thing here. They were saying, in some people view this card and they see maybe the people who are out in the storm and who are isolated have chosen to be out there. For example, that if the church disapproves of them or their relationships, rather than conform to traditional standards, they stay outside.
Yeah,
that's another.
True. Well, back to the bell. I kind of think that, maybe there are underlying factors contributing to someone's struggles that they're just not readily apparent. And so I think it might be telling us not to be too quick to judge somebody's situation. I think that might be good for the bell.
Another thing that I saw about this card, it can mean going without on many levels and exposing yourself to the outside world, perhaps no longer being self-sufficient or having to rely on another person to take care of you. Or it can be maybe a gambler banking on his luck, a student taking a year, or
I don't see how that, I don't know where I would go with that with the bell though. Do you?
I beg your, with the bell? No, this.
Okay, well we were talking about the bell, but I mean that card has a lot of meaning. Right now we're trying to stick with these hidden things. Let's look at the 9 of Pentacles next. You know what? I got to tell you, Anne-Marie, this is my favorite deck, my favorite card in the whole deck. I just love this card, and to me, it does look
cool. Yeah, she does look cool.
Well, it's a self card. It's about about self-resilience and self-confidence and self. Just she can take care of herself. It's like she's just comfortable in her own skin, and it doesn't matter where she goes or what she does. She has control of her life and everything, and she's worked for everything. Now, the reason why we brought this card up is twofold. Number one is the snail. In the very bottom left corner of this card, there's a snail, and I think it's obvious. But I don't think a lot of people look at it and pay attention. I think it's all about, consistent and steady progress is what I think it's about. And be persistent. No need to rush through something. I think that's kind of the point of it, don't you?
And maybe just to remind yourself that she didn't get there overnight. The snail reminds that it was slow, exactly what you're saying. Slow, steady progress was what got her in her garden of delight, which is, and the bird,
Yep.
you mentioned bird earlier. She has a bird. They say maybe it's a falcon or a hawk on her arm because she's got this gauntlet, and the hawk is hooded. So maybe that was something she had to do at some stage to stop herself being distracted or being led away
Right.
in different things. So she had to
Eliminate distraction from one's vision or goal.
exactly.
Yeah.
And one other thing about that now that we're on the falcon, maybe if this bird catches your attention, and if you're in a nice position, if you've got accumulated, you never have too much money, but if you're in a happy position as she's in, maybe it's time to stop now, to stop and take the hood off the falcon, take the hood off the bird, figuratively, which is off yourself, and look around to see what else is there.
Yeah.
Now, what else could I doing? What else could I be doing now? Now that I'm self-sufficient. And another thing, maybe if you've got everything you want, maybe it's time to start giving back something. But
Yeah.
from the point of view of the bird, if you take off the hood, suddenly you can see what the other options are out there. Perhaps she has decided, perhaps at this stage she has got everything she wants, and now she's feeling she's in a lonely place. So what else can she do? Take the hood off the bird and find out what the rest of her options are.
That's neat too. I didn't think about that part of it. Hey, next we have the Ten of Pentacles.
Again,
there
very,
was
very busy card. Very busy
yeah,
card.
there's a lot of stuff on, and there's all kinds of stuff on it. There's a couple things we've even found that we decided we weren't even going to bother with, but the thing that I think is just the strangest thing is, if you will notice, is it in this card? Yes. Looking on the card of the screen, look at the old man with his white hair right behind his head, not behind his head, but in the background for us, you will see a set of scales. And until we started talking about this, I never noticed them before, but there is a set of scales right there. And, it's funny because the scales on the Justice card and the scales on the Six of Pentacles cards, they're really obvious and they're on the left, while the Ten of Pentacles is hidden and on the right side of the card. And, I couldn't really find anything on this in any of the books or any of the research. So all I could come up with was that, true fulfillment comes from achieving balance in all the areas of one's life. And so maybe, that's why it's there to focus on, establishing harmony and, rather than the actual act of achieving it. It's like we've already achieved it in the Ten of Pentacles. We've achieved that harmony, and now it's just, living it. What do you think?
Things there. And I must, anyway, we better deal with the scales first of all. I tend to hop around as I see you. There's so much in this card, where to start. And they're saying here that the arch itself bears a relief of balanced scales just above the old man's head. Now, scales stands for justice, and further for subtle forces which keep the everyday world from breaking into chaos. By acting in a certain way, people create in themselves the ability to recognize and receive the blessings of the world around them. Because someone was making the point, this is the 10, this is the card of completion. But if you look at all the people in the card, they're totally disconnected. They're not appreciating what they've got. Nobody's looking at anybody else.
The dogs are.
The dogs are recognizing the men, the old man.
That's because the old man has a treat.
Ah, you see. But
I'm kidding, of course.
That's where your scales come in. I think that they're telling you that you must create in yourself a recognition when you are well off. You create in themselves the ability to recognize and receive the blessings of the world around them.
Right.
An interesting thing. Well, no, you see, I'm gone skew whiff again. Do you want to hear a piece of useless information, or do you want to keep going?
I like to keep going because we have quite a few cards left.
Okay, we stay going there.
But I'll tell you right now, we're gonna start addressing some of these in more detail on the on the podcast, because there's so much information and people love this kind of information. So we'll take like cards and pull like everything out of the card and discuss some of these things. The next card that we came up with was the Ace of Cups. And there are several things you and I talked about this card, but I think that the one that we chose for this video, the true hidden, is if you look at the base of this cup, right below the W, if you look right below it, you will see there are bells hanging from the cup itself, right at the top of the stem. And
Yes.
and of course, what I think is cool is that bells are symbolic of notifications. So that would make sense with this card, because this card usually is, it's the announcement of something new. So like a birth announcement or pending nuptials. And you know what? Even if you think about YouTube, it's like, hey, ring the bell if you want to be notified, right, of new videos. So that's what the bells have always stood for, was notifications. So and you know what? They're also called, they're used to call to prayer as well. I mean, think about churches and mosques and synagogues, and they ring the bell to bring people to prayer. So I think that's kind of cool. And but I think I think of marriage, or engagements, and maybe if someone got pregnant, or if it's a happy occasion, like that people just want to share. So maybe you might want to throw yourself a promotion party. Hey, I just passed the bar party or something like that. So some new piece of information is coming, and it's going to be heartfelt, I think.
Okay.
And so
And
much like the pages, I think that this card brings news. It's just news of something very positive.
And on that note again, in a reading, you could also remind yourself not to expect instant fulfillment, and not to expect others to force the pace. You're going to get some news, but don't expect fabulous news overnight, that the whole world is going to change overnight. Something good is going to happen, and don't allow others to take over your good news and run with it.
And also to enjoy it, to take it in fully. And that's a good thing. The next card that we were going to talk about was the Six of Cups. And again, there's just so many pieces of the puzzle. But here specifically, and I know you and I have kind of been at odds on this one. If you look at the picture on the screen, notice that in the little girl's hair, there's a face. And I didn't, of course, every time I see this card, I see the face in the hair. It's one of those things where you can't take it back.
Can't unsee it.
I'm sorry?
You can't unsee it.
No, not every, yeah.
You can't unsee it.
But yeah, I can't unsee it. You're right. And all I could come up with on this was, there's absolutely no mention of this anywhere that I could find. But it could symbolize a person or an experience from the past that is still influencing this little girl. By extension, obviously, the person sitting in front of you asking the question. So, it could also be her intuition guiding her, or it could just be a figment of her imagination. But it's something that's highlighting the nostalgia or something from her childhood. So it's I almost want to say alter ego. It could just be so many things. I'm not sure how to take it. Did you manage to come up with something?
Little girl. When I look at that, I'm not sure what I'm seeing, but I never see a little girl. To me, that's the face of an old woman, and I'm not sure what the little elfie man is. But I never see it. I can never see a child in that face.
Oh, that's.
But wait till I tell you, this is about. We're saying that this is about looking back on idyllic childhood, when you felt unconditional love and support. And this is actually a state that many people never even experience. But do you know what came up in a reading? You can talk about renewing old ties, rekindling love, or a lover from the past could be heading your direction, or an old fling mean, they're possibilities. They're all
I'm,
coming from
I'm
the
trying to equate that back to the
oh,
face,
oh,
and
you're
I can't do
you're
it.
you're
But I
equating it back to
agree. I agree that that's what the card's about. And
oh yeah.
I think that because the card is so obvious about nostalgia, about childhood, about the innocence of it, that it's hard to see some of the hidden features, the other things that are in the card. So for example, and we don't need to go into this too heavy because people already, it's already a known thing, but on the background in this card, all the way to the left, you'll see there's a guard. And it's like, what is the guard for? What's he doing, in this thing? And I think I don't see it as he's protecting them. I see it more as an internal thing where you're protecting yourself, or, maybe the thought of protecting your heart, since it's a cup card, right? Maybe the thought of protecting your heart when somebody is offering you something,
Mm.
and you know what I'm saying, and you want to make sure that it's real.
I
So
came across that you might like. Um, as I said earlier, the card suggests an idyllic childhood in which one feels unconditional love and support. This is a state that many people never experience. The man standing watchfully in the background of the card suggests a principle of ageless wisdom. That being, we are all children of divinity, watched over and loved by our divine parents in ways our physical parents were unable to do.
yeah.
You like
So
that?
yeah, and that would help depict the guard. I mean, he could just be a metaphor for a child's spidey sense. It's a need to
Yes.
protect herself.
You see, we need to go back at this particular. We need to do this card another time and tear it apart, because this
Okay.
card, in the book by Katz, it tells you exactly who is who in this card. It
Okay.
tells you who the lady is. It tells you who the guard is. It tells you an awful lot of stuff, and these are all part of where Pamela Coleman Smith was when she was drawing these cards. They're all
All
things
right.
that happened in that case.
What
So
book is that, Emery?
that's Secrets of the Tarot, I think it's called.
Okay. Oh, is that the Katz book? The Katz
That's
Goodwin?
Marcus Katz, isn't it? Katz, Marcus Katz and Tali Goodwin.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Lovely.
Okay.
I'm working. I pick it up from time to time. Every time I pick it up, I see something that I like in it. But a lot of it is Pamela. She had all these cards. Anyway, we won't go there. But this card particularly, he explains exactly what the place is, who the lady is, who the man is, and all that type of thing, according to himself.
Right.
That the lady in the card, her father, her actual father, was a captain of the guards, and that's why they put him in as just a nod to him. But anyway, we'll stay going because I get led astray very, very easily.
I know. It's well, you are so full of information on this history stuff because it's something that you've done a lot more research than I certainly have. So the
Well,
next card, I'm sorry.
Our reason for doing the cards, but one of the reasons why you decided to do this was when people started looking at cards, that they would have something real to look at, that they
Right.
weren't looking at a piece of card and a paper and looking at something with old people who were dressed years ago,
Right.
the way people dressed years ago, or that type of thing. And if you find out a bit of the background, suddenly the card becomes real, and you begin to
Well,
see maybe an old lady in the card and her father protecting her, and suddenly that makes sense to you, and you think, oh, you remember how your father protected you in different situations. So if you have a little bit of that knowledge, it just means the card comes to life,
right.
and suddenly you're
And
not left.
it can also be fun. So
Yes.
it's like the Seven of Cups here, right? It ends
Oh,
up
the
just
Seven
being
of Cups. Yes.
it just means something fun. So in this card, I never noticed before that in the cup with the wreath, there is a skull on the cup.
Yeah,
And I never noticed that before. Some say that the wreath signifies inevitable victory in the end. So what you choose really does matter. And this is a direct link back to Pamela Coleman Smith for this, because so I I don't think that in the original decks it was there, was it, Anne-Marie? I think this is something that came along in copycat decks. And so obviously, artists in all these cards, in some of these decks, they've taken an art, kind of an artistic license to add some things of their own along the way. But I've always seen this card as wishful thinking, or be careful what you wish for because it might come true. And the skull could easily represent a sober reminder that nothing lasts forever, and that the choices that we make do have consequences. And even with success, there are consequences. So, again, it's about being indecisive and chasing after illusions or fantasies instead of facing reality. And you can't get any more real than death, than the skull.
And that's there in the end. It's about, when I look at this, I remember doing a reading for a lady once, and she just had one card. She had picked a card at one of these parties where you pick a card. And immediately I remember saying to her, look, this to me looks just like pie in the sky. Whatever it is you're thinking about, it's pie in the sky. Yeah. And just said she had just been in for an interview, and they had offered her the sun, moon, and stars, so much money, holidays, everything she could possibly wish for. And that's exactly what it was. She said when she read the small print, this was pie in the sky, literally. She had all these things that they were giving her, but none of them were really what they seemed to be. They all had strings out of them. So when I look at the pie in the sky, read the small print, look at each cup if you want to look at each cup, and ask yourself, what does it look as if you're being offered? Now, the snake, you could say it's a whole new opportunity to shed your old life and start a new life. And they tell you, in fact, what these are: castles and jewels and victory, and the dragon is being frightened of something. But look at them carefully and see what do you think they're offering, first of all.
Right. So do you have any, I couldn't find anything on the skull on this cup. Did you find anything about that?
I didn't look.
I honestly, Anne-Marie, I think it's just something that an artist came up with once and other people liked it. And so I think they kind of stuck with it,
What Katz said is Pamela Coleman Smith, when she was drawing the 7 of cups, she was, apparently there are 7 stages of an alchemical process. And this is what she was trying to do. But he also said that she didn't get it right, that some of these stages are not, the chemical symbols aren't correct. But that's just another version of it. Really, it's, I must look and see, can I find anything now about the skull? I wasn't particularly looking for that. And I'm not sure, I won't go rooting for the Katz book now, or for one of those. It didn't appear, obviously it didn't appear in any of the ones I was looking at. I was looking at Rachel Pollack's book, Eden Gray's book, Cassandra Easton. You like Cassandra Easton.
I just think she's bizarre. I like her books.
I love her stuff. I even had a look at Tarot for Dummies.
Oh yeah, I've looked. I love that for prompts. That's a great book for prompts.
Yes, and there were a few bits and pieces in it that I thought were interesting. But anyway, I didn't come across any skull. I have to look further, search more.
So next up is the 9 of Swords. And honestly, I the only reason I bring this up, and by the way, and I said this in the first video, all the books that we've addressed and the videos and everything are all going to be down below. But this whole thing, I decided to resurrect this discussion you and I were having last year about this and do these videos, is because there was a video, Shocking Secrets. And I mean, some of the stuff in there, I don't know how she came up with some stuff. But one of the things that she did say that I thought was interesting is all the signs of the universe on the blanket. And she said, how can a person sleep with the weight of the whole universe weighing down on them? And I just thought that was a great, I don't know, I like the analogy. And I think that kind of brings this simple card. It brings something else out that you can use in this card. It's just because if you look at the blanket, I mean, never mind the the universal signs. I mean, it looks heavy the way it is, but just that weight, the weight, down on her. And and go ahead.
Our good lady Rachel Pollack, she addresses this. She said, "This is a card, an image of deepest sorrow, of utmost mental pain. Very often, the nine refers not to something happening directly to ourselves, but rather to someone we love." Now I'm going back to the blanket. Love, in fact, fills the card and gives it its meaning. The blanket design shows roses, a symbol of passion, alternating with the signs of the zodiac. This is a mind that has taken on itself all the sorrows of the world.
Oh, yeah. And somebody else brought up, and I don't know where it was, but it looks like there's blood on the sheets.
I haven't seen that, but I saw that. I saw that from time to time.
And then below, see the carving below? It's two people fighting. It almost looks like they're jousting. I think it just adds to the, I just think it adds to the, the fact that there's no peace for this person. There's swords up above, right? There's all these grim thoughts up above. There's fighting down below. There's the weight of the whole world covering them. So I think it just really kind of brings it home. To me, it just all comes back to, that high anxiety in the middle of the night when, it's 3 a.m. and you're pacing the floor and wringing your hands and you're so worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. And then the sun comes up the next day and, it's different in the daylight. It's not as, what I'm saying? It's something that you worry and pace the floor and wring your hands, and then it never comes to fruition. It's
now
it's a lot of worry.
Your Eason says, just take note that the swords are not pointing towards her. The enemy looks in her mind. She's thinking about former, perhaps failures or disappointments. And the problem here could be ignoring the real current problems because of a preoccupation with the past. One thing I want to
interesting.
ask you, this is something I heard ages ago. And this has been called the miscarriage card.
Yeah, I heard something like that, and I just think that's kind of weird. But
I don't like. I mean, and I have experience of this, of seeing this. Obviously, you're not going to say this. Obviously, you're not going to say this to somebody. But I do have experience of doing a reading where this came up, and funnily enough, what came up next to it was the 10 of Pentacles.
So it's family.
And the card I'm using at the time showed a grandfather sitting with a child, bouncing a child on his knee. It wasn't your usual, wasn't the exact one. And this to me didn't make sense at all. A miscarriage and the child bouncing on the granddaddy's knee.
Mm-hmm.
But that's exactly what happened. There was a miscarriage, and a year later there was a child bouncing on the granddaddy's knee, but it was later.
Well, good thing it had a good ending. Hey, the last card on our list is the 7 of Wands.
Where is our 7 of Wands?
And on this one, the thing we're addressing on this card is the mismatched shoes.
Uh-huh.
And I've heard people say, well, he wasn't organized enough, but then other people would say, oh, it's his adaptability and his resourcefulness. It's like he's able to fight back using whatever means are available, even if the circumstances are not ideal. So this aligns with that positive aspect of the card, which is, use your wit and ability to improvise to overcome obstacles. And I don't know how much I agree with that or not. But I see it as stand your ground, which, but be adaptable, right? I mean, don't be rigid or combative, because you're not going to win people over with that. And communicate clearly, because you just need to be ready to come back with hard facts. So that's how you could adapt, or that's how you're going to, fight your situation, and just find common ground and, with people. So to me, it's always been a defensive card, but, the thing that bothers me the most is talk about him, his mismatched shoes, being his ability to adapt, right? To go the high road or the low road. What I've always what's always bothered me the most about this card is that they're all in front of him. They're blocking him from moving forward. So why not just turn around and walk backward? There's nobody behind you. It's like, why not just walk out of the situation? Why stand your ground and fight if you don't have to?
Is he not? Is he not standing on a cliff?
It is to me, though. It looks like because the people are down below him and only the tips of their wands are sticking out from the bottom of this card, tells me that he's standing on a cliff and they're in front of him anyway. So it looks like there's rolling hills behind him. So, why not just turn around and walk away? But again, really help address the shoes. But it just, to me, what I think is, I think you had said something. Were you the one or somebody else had said something to me where it looks like he's wearing a shoe and he's wearing a sock?
Yes.
And that maybe, maybe it is about being unprepared. Maybe he wasn't prepared to take on this battle.
But when I see this, this is the 7 of Wands.
Right.
And I think of the 6 of Wands. The 6 of Wands, our hero was riding in on a horse.
Yep.
All of these 6 of Wands that you're looking down here were surrounding him. They were all facing him and saying, home comes the hero. This is all fabulous. So you think of somebody who maybe has achieved a good promotion in their job, or maybe has got on very well. Then suddenly you get one card later and you get to the 7, and people are saying he's not as great as we thought he was. Suddenly he has to defend his position, and suddenly the man who thought he was getting on very well is taken unawares. He hasn't expected these 6 to turn on him. So suddenly this is where his unexpectedness comes in. He has to defend himself unexpectedly. And the 2 shoes means he's not prepared. This has happened without him expecting it to happen.
I think that's a good way to look at it.
So somebody else made the point is another scenario is the threat of the attack from 6 others is these may be just 6 wands that are passing by. There may be people that are passing by. Maybe they're not threatening him at all. That you may have you're on the high ground, and perhaps no action is needed on your part if you stand firm and allow things to pass over.
Right. Well, this has been kind of fun. And you know what? All it's done for me, Anne-Marie, is just open up so much more that we need to talk about. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry we couldn't get it all in this one video or these 2 videos. I'll put below again the first video we did last week, on the majors, and hopefully we've given some people some interesting things to think about. We'll continue to address things in our monthly podcast. So we do that the 3rd Tuesday of every month, and it's posted usually by Wednesday, the first thing Wednesday morning. So if not the night before. So we'll try to do that. What are you working on now, Anne-Marie? Anything in particular?
Nothing in particular. No, I seem to be playing catch up all the time now. The life seems to be very busy, but I can't exactly say with what, but life seems to be very, very busy. But I'll tell you what struck me just as you were finishing up there. Maybe anyone who's watching what we've been talking about tonight, if something comes up that they're not sure about, or they're saying, what are they saying? Why did they say that? Why not let you know? Why not drop your comment?
Put that stuff in the we answer any comment that comes our way, and we appreciate that.
Wouldn't it be lovely to hear that too? Because when I was learning the cards, I would have welcomed any bit of information I got. Right. I hounded people. All I had to hear them talking about was tarot, and I was over there trying to get information. So
what are you talking about? I still do that.
Well, I still do that too.
I'm still reaching out. I still feel like a newbie sometimes.
Or someone who's saying that what are they talking about? This doesn't make sense. Say it, and we'll address it. And wouldn't it be lovely? It would be so nice to know that somebody was tuned in and was getting some good from it.
Yeah, we'd like to know that. Thank you all for watching us. I'll put all this information and other videos down below, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.